أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فانتقمنا منهم فأغرقناهم في اليم بأنهم كذبوا بآياتنا وكانوا عنها غافلين وأورثنا القوم الذين كانوا يستضعفون مشارق الأرض ومغانبها التي باركنا فيها وتمت كلمة ربك الحسنى على بني إسرائيل بما صبروا ودمرنا ما كان يصنع فرعون وقومه وما كانوا يعرشون صدق الله العظيم. The end result that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and to the people of Fir'aun, that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, as will come to ayat later inshallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Musa alayhi salam and the Banu Israel cross over the sea, and as far as Fir'aun, فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ, we took vengeance on them, فَأَغْرَقْنَاهُمْ فِي الْيَمِّ, we drowned them into the sea. Why? Because of them, they're takdhibul ayat, they're belying, they're falsifying, they're rejecting the clear signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were heedless about the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when a people, whether an individual or an entire people, when they start, a point comes when a person starts thinking that he has some form of right to things in this world. And they think that the conditions will never change. What situation am I in? It's as if I'm a rightful heir to that. Whatever I say, it gets to a person's head after a certain time. So especially things like wealth, power, governance, these things start deceiving a person. Yani Fir'aun, for example, the example of Fir'aun, because that's what's relevant over here, that if he said that أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى, when he told the people that I am your most high Lord, so a normal person will think to himself that at the end of the day, does he also not understand this? That he also knows the reality that I'm a human being just like other human beings. As the rest of the people, they go to sleep, I need to sleep. As the rest of the people need to eat and drink, I'm also muhtaj and in need of these things. If something happens to me, I also become sick. So how does a person come to such a level and make such claims? Or he says that هذه الأنهار تجري من تحتي, that all of these rivers that you're seeing, whether it be the Nile, different, all of this is flowing under me, all of this under my control. So you may sit and think that, does he also, who's he fooling? Does he not know this? So that is the test of power, that test of authority, the test of wealth, the test of a person who apparently seemingly has everything going their way, that whatever they say they can get away with. That is that person's test. Just as there are people in the world whose test is through sabr, through patience, their test is that they don't have things aren't going their way, what they want, that's not being fulfilled. That's one form of test. This is also a form of test. And this, in fact, can become a very, or it often is, a more difficult test. Why? Because your person seeing himself on top. When someone's on top, then to realize that, hey, maybe I should bring myself a little lower. That's difficult. But if you're already here, what else are you going to do other than turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When someone doesn't have anything going their way, is there any other solution for them other than lifting their hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So in one sense, or rather in many senses, that this is actually a more difficult test. That when a person is on top, he has dominance. Now to make sure that you are not abusing that, and that this wealth and this power doesn't get to you. So, وَكَانُوا عَنْهَا غَافِلِينَ, they were heedless, meaning they didn't realize that this situation, the tables can turn very easily. How is this going to happen? How is that going to happen? Meaning, if you look at the political situation over there, the socio-political situation in Misr at the time, they said that these are all slaves. We are controlling the Banu Israel. They're under us. We have the dominance. We have military. We have all forms of power. So we have everything set. Nothing's going to change, right? Because man, he gets deceived. He's very short-sighted. He just looks at two things that are in front of him. How can this happen? How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it happen? The sea split and they are all drowned. Things where a person his mind doesn't go to. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these things, whether it be one way or the other, all of this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the same. A mountain and a pebble in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the same. An army and an individual is the same. A fly, the wing of a fly, and the entire earth for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the same. You and I look at it as this person has so much power and this has this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, as this world saw, one small disease or one pandemic made the entire world shut down. Everything is changed now. You have to, all forms of this type of quarantine and this rule and that rule. The whole world is put into shock that we've never experienced something like this. Allah forbid if that becomes an even more higher stage, and even higher stage. So these things are all a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The idea is, the important point to understand is that in whichever situation an individual or a community or a nation and ummah is in, at that situation, what is the correct thing for them to do? That is their test at the moment. And then, how does Allah subhanahu, in this very simple way, the Quran says, وَأَوْرَثْنَا الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ كَانُوا يُسْتَضْعَفُونَ. That same nation who were considered weak, they were looked down upon, referring to the Banu Israel, because the people of Fir'aun, the Coptics, they were controlling them, they belittled them, they looked down upon them, they oppressed them, they enslaved them. Every other child that is being born, they're killing them. And if we talk about dhulm and oppression, that also happened. So وَأَوْرَثْنَا الْقَوْمِ. But what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He said that the same people who are oppressed, we gave them the east and the west of the earth, meaning all of that land. We gave it to them as if it was inheritance. The inheritance is something which definitely is going to come. If one person passes away, that money is going to have to go somewhere, right? That money a person passes away with, you don't bury it with you, it doesn't go with you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran is saying, وَأَوْرَثْنَا, as if we gave them mirath, inheritance. This is yours, guaranteed, it's halal, most pure for you. To inherit the east, and in mirath there's no difficulty, right? You don't have to go and work for it. Inheritance is easy money. Inheritance, there's no work for it. So they built up the whole structure. They built up the society. They built up the entire city. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hukum, command comes. He wraps that up, and this is ready for the next people to come. So what is this land? مَشَارِقَ الْأَرْضِ وَمَغَارِبَهَا. Some Mufassirun say that it refers to only Sham, the area of Sham, and others say both Sham and Misr. Sham and Misr. وَمَغَارِبَ الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in both Sham and Misr. There is barakah. In Misr, by the Tur Sayna is there. The tajalli of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was cast over there. And Sham, that's as the Quran Kareem says, المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله, the whole area of Sham. Some Mufassirun, some Muhadithin say, ulama of history, that almost every Nabi came into that area through Sham. And then from there, Anbiya will go to different places. التي باركنا فيها وتمت كلمة ربك الحسنى على بني إسرائيل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's good word became complete in the right of or for the Banu Israel. Meaning that when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he told them, عَسَى رَبُّكُمْ أَن يُهْلِكَ عَدُوَّكُمْ وَيَسْتَخْلِفَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرَ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. That it's very close. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you khilafah and give you mulukiyah and control over the earth. But then, as we said over there, what did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam remind them of? فَيَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. He will see how do you act now. That right now you are oppressed, so you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're showing sabr, as it's going to come. That وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ الْحُسْنَى عَلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ بِمَا صَبَرُوا. They did, at the end they showed sabr. They persevered, they turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they entrusted their affair to Musa alayhi salatu, and they listened after that. And they showed this sabr, the patience they showed in the face of dhulm. But over there, what did Musa alayhi salatu tell them? That when the tables turn, then the more important thing is that you don't celebrate and do the same thing again. That what was done to you, you reciprocate and you do the same back. فَيَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we'll see how do you act. When you're madhloom, you are crying about it. There you are complaining. There you know how it feels to be oppressed. But now when you have the dominant and upper hand, how do you? Do you act in the same way? Or do you have a heart and do you show rahmah and mercy to those who are to be shown that? وَدَمَّرْنَا مَا كَانَ يَصْنَعُ فِرْعَوْنُ وَقَوْمُهُ وَمَا كَانُوا يَعْرِشُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there, whatever they had made and whatever they were proud of, all of that was destroyed. All of that was set aside. All of that was put away, whether physically or in the sense that it no longer belongs to them. وَمَا كَانُوا يَعْرِشُونَ, and all those things that they constructed. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the understanding of the Quran.